I make clients do core or movement work every single session. I think it's really important to make sure we're using our core and actually tackling it from multiple different angles throughout the week. And it's really easy to tack on something at the end of a session. I like to do them as 5 or 6 minute AMRAPs. That means as many rounds or as many reps as possible. Generally, I'll give people 2 or 3 exercises, so I'll use it as rounds where someone will do exercise 1 into 2 into 3, and then they'll just go back into 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or however many exercises they want to do. The core has a lot of different functions. It can flex, which is almost like a crunch where we're bending forwards. I'm going to go through the different movements and then give you some exercises so you have an idea. But flexing is crunching forwards. It's also crunching by lifting our legs up. Anything where we fold forwards is flexion. We also have extension. We don't want to just think of core as our 6-pack front of the core. We want to think of it as this full 360 around the midsection or around the torso area. So we have extension, which is bending backwards, which is kind of like lower back, a little bit of glutes, a little bit of upper back. We also have bending sideways, so we have lateral flexion. So bending down to the side, which is going to be a bit more like obliques, QLs, and a little bit of other parts of the spine and side of the core. We've then got rotation, so anything where our trunk is twisting around, separated from the hips. And then finally, we've got anti-rotation, anti-flexion, which I like to just classify as isolation. So just locking things down and keeping them still. Think of a plank. It's something where you're holding it and not moving. So let's go through a few different exercises that you can use in all those different areas, and then how you can arrange that into a core routine. So for flexion, some of the really most simple and basic ones are things like a crunch or a sit-up. I really prefer doing a crunch rather than a sit-up because it allows you to get a little bit more contraction through the core as opposed to using our hip flexors. Oftentimes the core will contract into a position where it can't anymore, and then if we come up further, it's just actually our hips that are bending. Not necessarily a bad thing because our hip flexors control a lot of things that go with the core, but if we're really trying to target that more kind of like core flexion, then a crunch is something that's really good. So a crunch is going to be a really good example for that. Also a leg raise. You can also combine those two where you do a crunch and leg raise at the same time. I like to call them double crunches, but essentially you'd be lying down on the ground. You're going to bring your chest towards your knees, knees towards your chest, and fold in the middle. So you've got stuff like a crunch where we're here, legs up, crunching up in. You've got something like a leg raise where our knees are coming up towards the top. You can also do these as hanging leg raises or dip bar leg raises. And then you've got a double crunch where we're coming open and out. There's 3 really good and basic flexion exercises you can do. For extension, sometimes machines end up being a better use for this. We've got stuff like a 45-degree back raise. We can do this where we're doing a full back extension. You can also do something where you're doing a reverse glute raise. So we're lying down on our bench or a reverse hyperextension, and then from there we're lifting both our legs up and backwards. The easiest way to do this without equipment is by doing Supermans. So we lie down on our face, and then from there we can either just do our legs coming up, but ideally if we can get our arms and our legs coming up at the same time, we can get some form of contraction through the lower back. Lateral flexion is next. Lateral flexion is a bit of a funny one because machines again end up being a really good one for this. If you've got access to a 45 degree, that is a really, really good piece of equipment for it. Obviously it's not set up in the 45 at the minute, but what we can do is we can get it put up into the 45, which will only take me a second, and we can get ourselves sideways on with the top of our hip up towards the bench, arms above the head, and we can lean over sideways and then pull ourselves in. That's going to be the same as doing some form of kind of like kettlebell lean, where we're in these positions, nice and tall, leaning over to the side and pulling back up. If you're doing that exercise, make sure that you're only holding one kettlebell, otherwise both of them equal itself out. The other thing that you can do is doing side plank hip dips. So from here, get ourselves into a side plank, lift ourselves up nice and high, and then drop the hip in and lift ourselves up. Not as good of a variation, but again, it's one that we're able to do. So we've got flexion, extension, lateral flexion. Rotation is up next. One of the best ways to do this is a really simple one, Russian twists. We can also do some form of twisting crunch. So if you wanted to do something like bicycle crunches, I would count that as kind of like flexion and rotation, but they're in the same realm. So Russian twist, we can be down in a position where we've got hands down, twisting around to our side. We can also do it legs in the air, or like I said, we can do something where we're doing a bicycle crunch, where we're getting elbow down to opposite knee. So we're getting a little bit of a twist in as we come for those. And finally, we've got isolation. So that can be things like planks, side planks, and hollow holds. They're the three easiest and really effective ones that you can do in this way. When we go for a plank, it's really important to make sure that our hips are tucked under. So the best way to practice this is by putting your hands on your hips and then trying to lift your bum into the air as much as you can. And then from there, try and tuck your pelvis under and tuck your tailbone under, squeeze your bum. And then again, we're going to open up and then we're going to squeeze under. This squeezed under position is where we want to be when we're doing our plank. When we've got that lower back rounded, we've got our core engaged. If we're in this position, all of the effort is going to be just put through the spine and not through the core. Obviously, we've gone through it where the back is part of the core, but we're really trying to target the more kind of like inner core muscles. And if we're in extension in this position, all of those are just kind of turned off to a degree. So from here, again, it's that kind of crunch under. So I get myself into a plank position. I try and point my bum to the sky and then tuck myself under. So there's going to be your plank. Side plank is the same idea. Get yourself into extension, tuck under and hold yourself up sideways. And then a hollow, believe it or not, is the same kind of thing, except you're on your back. So from there, open everything up and then tuck under and hold in that position. Try and push your lower back through the floor, and that's going to allow you to engage your core a lot more. So how do we put that into a routine? Well, what we want to try and do is choose at least 2 different types of movement. Flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation, isolation. You've got 5 there, so choose at least 2 of them. And then choose 2 or more exercises which are in those categories. So we can have something like a plank, Russian twist, and side bends. So we've got then isolation in the plank, we've got Russian twist, which is rotation, then we've got lateral flexion, which is going to be the side bends. And we would rotate through those exercises for 5 to 6 minutes. Pop a timer on your phone or on your watch and go to town on it. How much of those you can do will be down to how well you can hold those positions and what's effective. If you're someone that can hold a plank in a really good position for 30 seconds, maybe 30 seconds is a good plan. If you find it difficult, maybe 10 seconds is a good plan. If you're really good at them, maybe a minute is a good plan. But do note that we're only doing it for 5 to 6 minutes, so try not to have it where you do like a 3-minute plank and then don't do many of the others. The idea is to have them stack on each other so it gets gradually harder throughout the thing. So you might do a 30-second plank, followed by 30 taps on a Russian twist, so 15 each side, and then we might do 8 lateral bends on one side and 8 lateral bends on the other side. That might take you 1 minute 20, 1 minute 30. Roll back into that plank. You'll do that for 5 to 6 minutes. On your next session, you'll just choose different core exercises. We've just hit there, isolation, lateral flexion and rotation. So we haven't done extension and flexion. So I'll make sure I do those 2 with another one or just those 2 alone. And then every single session, I'll just dip and dab and repeat different ones in different combinations. This is going to give you a really robust core and make sure that you're using all the different areas that our core uses. If you can do this over and over, progressing the exercises into harder ones, using equipment, adding weight, you can have a really strong and stable core, which is going to help you throughout your daily life as well as all your other lifts in the gym.